So we really needed such an organization for the graduate students in Turkey and abroad too. So we have some international presenters too. So let's proceed the last session, energy security and geopolitics. Before we start, are you going to make any comment, Dan?
I hadn't prepared any. I'm looking forward to the presentations. Vildan, hello, I want to say, from class last year. And I've met Serkan, but I guess he's not going to be with us. I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys are putting together. I found some interesting topics here. So Leonardo, okay. yours in particular kind of caught my eye. So I'm eager to hear what you have to say. Glad you're here.
Okay, could you please present the first one?
Where I was the MC here, but I'll wing it, I guess. We have Leonardo Zanatta, interdisciplinary research, and he's in the interdisciplinary research and studies on Eastern Europe at Bologna University in Italy, and he is presenting a topic on his paper is called "In Pursuit of the New Great Game: An Overview of Caspian Energy Disputes After the Soviet Breakup."
And let me add one more thing about him. He is in Bologna University, but also a visiting scientist like you, John, in our center. Although
Super.
We haven't met already face to face, but we hope to do it as soon as possible. Okay, Leonardo.
That would be great. Welcome, Leonardo. Great.
Okay. Thank you so much for the speech, and thanks again for accepting me in this conference, which seems a very inspiring event. And I would like to thank you for collecting such a lot of interesting presentations and interesting arguments. So, as you can see from the title of the presentation, my research is devoted to the Caspian Sea region, and in particular to its discussed status concerning offshore resources since the collapse of the Soviet Union. So my research is basically devoted to the latest achievement in terms of energy sphere in the Caspian Sea area, which is the Convention on the Legal Status of the Caspian Sea, which was signed in 2018. And in particular, my study draws from two prominent scholars from Nazarbayev University in Kazakhstan and Singapore University, so Serik Arazgaliev and Eduardo Raos, which is a work called Conflict in Global Commons Theory and Evidence from the Caspian Sea, but we will see this later. And also with the advantage of many energy company statements, discourse of experts in the energy topics, and also relevant academic publications, the research goal is to describe whatever this treaty, whether this convention as represent a way to overcome the impasse following the breakup of the Soviet Union, and to understand whether the signing of this convention represents either the start of a new era, so the idea also of paving the way to new energy projects, or maybe represents more the two regional powers, I would call them like that, the most prominent regional powers, geopolitical entities. So in this case, Russia and Iran. So let's start from the beginning. I mean, the access to the offshore resources, which has been the most discussed topic in the area after the breakup of the Soviet Union. So we're in the 90s. We have to imagine that at that time there was such a big revival in oil demand, and also during the instability of the Middle East, the Caspian area has become an area of strategic importance for many big powers. So the discussion about the status of the Caspian Sea passes from three definitions. And the first one is to consider the Caspian Sea as a lake, which was firstly the position advocated by Iran and Russia. Let's see that considering the Caspian Sea like a lake, it means that the so-called UNCLOS, so the United Nations Convention about the law of the sea, wouldn't be valid actually. And the idea of the condominium, so dividing the space, the maritime source into equal parts, so 20% for each country, it's an hypothesis which Iran in particular has always advocated, because the 20 having the 20% would at least consent Iran to try at least to access to some at least exploration activities within the Caspian Sea, because providing it like a sea, this wouldn't be possible, because applying the UNCLOS with a special regard to the Caspian Sea, since the width of the Caspian Sea doesn't exceed the 200 miles, we should apply the so-called modified median line criteria. As you can see here from the percentages, Iran would be hugely penalized. And of course, this is the position which mostly was advocated by Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan, which are the two countries which have the most interesting to exploit the huge resources of the Caspian Sea, and also to open their investments to the West. So this is generally was the position advocated by these two countries. And Russia, we will see in the next slides, especially in the second part of the 90s, changed this position from joining the Iran front position, so considering the lake idea as it was during Soviet times, to organize the involvement of other countries within the idea of the sea. But actually, as we will see later, the idea of the Caspian Convention is actually considering a mix of these two ideas. So common water, but shared bottom, I mean. So Russia advocates the idea of dividing the seabed in national security zones, but at the same time, it prefers to employ a common management and of the preservation of free navigation, and also using common ecological standards. And these economical concerns, which are used by Russia as an instrument actually for pursuing its prerogatives in the Caspian Sea, something which is clearly provided by the Caspian Sea law, and this is something which we should be interested. So we should consider that the outcome in the northern and in southern Caspian have been really different. And this is also what the theoretical approach that we will face soon marks, especially because in the North Caspian Sea, through the 90s, we achieved somehow a process of cooperation in the energy sphere. And everything started by Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan initiatives. So the idea of creating joint ventures and opening to foreign investments was something really highly advocated by Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan has probably been the most successful one in achieving this target. As we all know, like the Southern Gas Corridor has been the final result of this Azerbaijani tentative to increase its the foreign investments and to export its rich resources to other parts of the world. And actually, Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan started to move in order to pursue this median line process against the prerogatives of Iran. As you can see, already in the late 90s, Kazakhstan achieved this agreement with Turkmenistan, and also Russia and Kazakhstan agreed on that. This was the moment, especially in 1998, when Russia understood that it was pointless to continue to stay on the Iranian side of the issue. And so jointly developments of many wells were achieved, and also the median line division, as well as between Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan, and Russia and Azerbaijan. This is something which was achieved a little bit later, but this is something actually which came true. Realistically, these countries had wanted to pursue some economic interests in the short term, and this is why they successfully achieved cooperation. This is something which didn't happen in the south. In particular, something which really comes to mind is the energy disputes which have occurred in the southern Caspian Sea. And the first one, for example, concerns the so-called Alov or Albors. It depends from which side we want to call it, which is a huge complex of fields, of oil fields, which was contended in the end of the 90s and still is contended by between Azerbaijan and Iran. So both countries signed contracts to start the exploration activities in Alov Albors. And this is something which even escalated until that Iran and Azerbaijan threatened military conflicts. And this made all the exploration activities, in particular from British Petroleum to cease in the region. And also there was already a huge international involvement within the issue. This proved that the Caspian Sea region was becoming increasingly an interest of many external powers' priorities. And the second one is the so-called Kyapaz-Serdar field, which has been contended between Azerbaijan and Turkmenistan. This is an issue which, yes, started at the end of the 90s, and it's actually prominent to another issue, which is the development, which is still relevant to another fundamental issue, probably the most discussed issue in the region, which is the so-called Trans-Caspian Pipeline Initiative. So as you can see, also in this case, Azerbaijan was involving other foreign companies to deploy this field, which at the same time was claimed by Turkmenistan. And the two countries actually didn't prove to their interest to cooperate. And this is something which didn't interfere in Azerbaijani energy policy in the region, but for Turkmenistan actually was kind of relevant because it blocked Ashgabat initiative towards Western markets. So the Trans-Caspian Pipeline Initiative, this Trans-Caspian Pipeline, as you can see, is a 300-kilometer segment, like a 300-kilometer underwater pipeline, which was highly endorsed by the US and other Western powers, but which never came to light, and it's still something which has been contended into the region. Especially because like Turkmenistan has been increasingly dependent on exporting its rich gas resources to China. And this Trans-Caspian pipeline, as well as another infrastructure called TAPI, was one of the two ways for Turkmenistan to get out of this huge dependency. So the first steps towards this project, especially with the endorsement of the United States, came in 1996. But still, these kinds of memorandums, agreements were all on paper. And this is something which never came to light. So the idea is whether to understand whether this convention actually paves the way to this new project initiative. As you can see, then this Trans-Caspian Pipeline would be one of, according to Ashgabat's idea, but also according to the memorandum which have been signed in the late 90s and early 2000, would be like one of the latest segments of the Southern Gas Corridor, so connecting to Baku, and from Baku then entering into the TANAP, the TAP, arriving then to Italy. So what can we achieve from what we have just seen? What is the theory and the evidence from the Caspian Sea? According to the two scholars who I mentioned before, we can reconnect cooperation and conflict in North Caspian and South Caspian to a huge prisoner dilemma. So let's just try to use game theory for a moment. And although this cannot represent like 100% prisoner dilemma, of course, because in this case the actors can communicate, and since there is not only one tentative, we can see how in the case of the North Caspian Sea, due to some cooperation determinants such as economic interests, geopolitics and security, and also cultural ties in certain extent, the several parts involved in North Caspians were suddenly encouraged to cooperate, We had security issues such as also the will from Azerbaijan to have good relations with its partners, especially due to the conflict in Nagorno-Karabakh, for example. We have also the will of Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan in the 90s, when still the Southern Gas Corridor didn't come to light, to exceed from Russia's in terms of trade oil export. This is something which in which Azerbaijan was successful and Kazakhstan still not, since most of the gas has to pass from and oil especially from Russian pipelines. And also we have the fact that they had common Soviet ties. This was extremely important in the leaderships, in the processing agreements to get the solution to these issues. So for the North Caspian countries, like these principles of dividing the seabed through median lines was something extremely successful. But according to the same cooperation determinants, this wasn't the same for South Caspian states. Iran and Turkmenistan had several disputes and also tensions due to unpaid energy bills. We have a country such as Turkmenistan, which has a very strict political leverage, which upholds this positive neutrality position, which it has advocated since the breakup of the Soviet Union. And this doesn't make possible any sort of, let's say, common organization, common framework to manage also the energy issues in the region. And also Iran is not part of the Soviet heritage. So also from a point of view of the political dialogue, this also complicated the issues. So these are economic interest, geopolitics, cultural ties. Let's keep it in mind because these factors have different outcomes in North Caspian states and South Caspian states. So what in 2018 has achieved this convention? Let's try to give it a look. So it provides a new status for the Caspian Sea. So we will see it now in the following slide. It paves, like on paper, it paves way to new energy projects. So the Trans-Caspian Pipeline Initiative, whether Azerbaijan and Turkmenistan could reach an agreement, actually on paper, it would be possible. And at the same time, we have to consider that this article 14.3 that you can see here on the slides has also an exception. And this came exactly from Iran and Russian geopolitical anxieties. This is what this research wants to prove, is that each part involved in the Caspian Sea can comment the implementation of new projects, especially raise question on the environmental impact of this transboundary pipeline project. And this is why since 2003, Russia and Iran are appealing in particular to this Tehran Convention, which protects the marine environment of the Caspian Sea, in order to halt the construction of the Caspian Sea. So in this case, this convention, although being symbolically a huge landmark to pave new projects, can be still overcome by Russia and Iran. And another issues, which is not directly related to energy, is prohibiting the presence of armed forces not belonging to any of the 5 coastal states. This is especially due to the fact that in the 90s, Russia and Iran were extremely worried about the agreements which the United States were achieving with Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan, especially because of the proximity to Afghanistan. So these geopolitical anxieties still are reflected in this document. It's a matter of fact. So what about the new Caspian status? I mean, let's give it a look. We have here a clear delimitation in the north, as we were saying before. So we actually have this division in territorial waters, fishery zones, common maritime space. We have these territorial waters coming out from 15 miles, fishery zones for other 10 miles, and then we have this joint common maritime space, which was the prerogative of Russia. So in this case, we still see that the Russian position is the position which has overcome at all in the management of the Caspian status. But still, why? What is still the issues which is unsolved? The convention says that the delimitation of the territorial waters still should be achieved on a consensus of all the parts. And what about these energy disputes which have been continuing since the breakup of the Soviet Union? They are exactly in the middle of these zones on which the parts, so namely Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan, and Iran, are still trying to deal, and still contend to each other that their territory is there. So this convention basically, and then I will just come to the conclusion, and sorry for being too long. Basically, this convention just reflects the status of conflict and cooperation which has occurred in the region since the breakup of the Soviet Union. So while in the North Caspian, the states have achieved somehow cooperation in the energy sphere, and this is also due to the involvement of many companies in the north part of the Caspian. In the south, this cooperation is still far and still couldn't be achieved in the short term because of these ongoing energy disputes. This document, although being a symbolic landmark, so like an intention of the Caspian countries to try to solve their issues, still doesn't put like a common point on how to divide the seabed and how to manage these energy resources. And this is also due to the result of the possibility of launching this Trans-Caspian Pipeline Initiative, which is still far from being realized and probably will never be realized. But still, we have to understand that Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan are already pursuing their their energy independent policy. And Russia, at the same time, has started, after the signing of this convention, to import some natural gas from Turkmenistan, which it will be addressed furtherly to China. So this is the conclusion, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Leonardo.
Here is a list of some reference that I used, and yes, thank you so much.
Okay, very good, very good. Okay, John, would you like to make any comment on the paper?
Well, I look forward to reading it more in depth. Obviously, can't cover all of your arguments. You know, I guess I had a couple questions. Okay. Is this the time for that?
Of course.
Okay. So I guess two questions. The first one, in 2018, I mean, this new convention, what kind of prompted it? I mean, what do you think brought everyone to the table for it? And then the second question is, Turkmenistan is an interesting question to me. And, you know, this positive neutrality, you know, I think from my understanding, please correct me, is that they, you know, didn't want to be, you know, a client state of a major power, you know, that they would be beholden to. And, you know, they, of course, then got into bed with China with this pipeline that came online in 2009. And it seems like they are essentially a Chinese client now. And so I'm wondering kind of to what extent China puts pressure in this area, if you have any sense of that, because they, of course, wouldn't want Turkmeni gas going the other way and competing with them on price.
Yes. Of course. Well, Turkmenistan is still an interesting question for me too, because it's a country which has always, at least concerning to energy, it's a country which has always aroused my interest. So China's presence into Turkmenistan energy sector is given from the fact that China knows how now has learned how to cooperate with Turkmenistan, because actually we all know that Turkmenistan is really is not very willing to open itself to foreign investments, in particular to concede some PSA agreements. There are very few companies which achieved this goal, and for example, the only like Western side company that achieved this goal is the Italian Eni company, but the others are all Chinese, yeah, especially Chinese companies. So China knows that can rely on Turkmenistan, and also because Central Asia has been increasingly important also in the Belt and Road Initiative. So I deem that Turkmenistan could be is foreseen by Beijing as an ideal point of readdressing its operations in the Central Asian region. So energy can also a part of this issue, and especially let's not forget that most of the 2009 pipeline has been paid by China, and now Turkmenistan has been sending natural gas to such a cheap price, also because it has to pay its debts back. So this situation is continuing, and since Turkmenistan is facing difficulties both on these South Caspian pipeline initiatives, but also on the TAPI initiatives because of problems with Afghanistan security, because of the will of Pakistan and India to renegotiate the agreement, well, this has been complicating the issues, and some talks about projecting another branch of this Turkmenistan-China pipeline have been already started. So concerning the 2018 agreement, this was basically the result of lots of annual summits that were conceived about the issues. And in my opinion, the initiative of solving the issues has been advocated especially by Russia, because especially the equilibriums, as we have seen throughout all these presentations, were not inclined to change, but still Russia wanted to achieve some like progress on paper, some process on paper. President Vladimir Putin hailed to this signing as like an historic path towards new cooperation in the Caspian Sea. But this is especially due to the fact that Russia was willing to come back on Turkmen energy sector, and in order to take back Turkmen gas, so that to feed also this new power of Siberian pipeline to address to China. So in my opinion, this was an initiative extremely wanted by Russia, but not from the other Caspian countries, which have already signed their agreement and seems not prompt to cooperate at all on the energy disputes, which I have explained before.
Very interesting. So, I mean, we've seen a lot of Chinese-Russian, just really a surge since 2014 of their collaboration in energy. So,
of course,
this seems to be another, what you're saying, area where they're actually kind of cooperating on energy in Central Asia. Absolutely. So it's very interesting. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Okay, let's ask the audience if they have any questions. Do you guys have any questions to Leonardo? No? Maybe let me ask you a last question to you.
Of course.
You know, a great game, a new great game,
yes,
has been played in the Caspian Sea since the breakup of Russia in 1991, and it is still continuing. So who do you think, which country do you think the winner of this game, and which are the losers?
Okay, so as we've just mentioned, probably the biggest loser of this new great game, which is Turkmenistan. But I think that this is like a still inflicted, like a self-inflicted defeat since the breakup of the Soviet Union. And in my opinion, most of the damage was made by former President Sapar Murat Niyazov, which was barely like close to open its countries. And the second loser, and this is also marked by the reaction of the public opinion of this country, is Iran. Iran is not, of course, happy about the outcome of this convention, Also because with this 14% of median line process, Iran would be definitively cut off of this new great game, because the maritime space of Iran would be just too small to initiate any exploration activity. And this is also the reason why Iran so far has been the country which has not ratified the convention yet. Iran is the only country which has not ratified the convention yet. Azerbaijan.
How about the winners? Yeah. How about the winners?
The winner is of course Russia, because Russia has achieved all the possible goals it could achieve. I mean, Russia cannot interfere into Azerbaijan or Kazakhstan energy policy, like even more than now. I mean, for Azerbaijan is already impossible. For Kazakhstan, let's just consider that most of the pipelines coming from Central Asia and taking Kazakhstani oil have to pass from Russia, which has of course been earning money about it. So Russia has achieved all what it wanted. I mean, it has achieved the status that it wanted to achieve for the Caspian Sea. It has assured itself the presence of only Caspian countries in the Caspian Sea. So it's also getting away on a security point of view, foreign powers from getting more into the Caspian Sea. And in my opinion, yes, they are the only winner. And this is also why I read many articles called also like agreement on the Caspian Sea, like convention or Russian concession, because actually this is what it sums up. This is the only thing which
Very good, Leonardo. Thank you for this great paper and your presence here. Hope to see you as soon as possible.
Of course, it's a pleasure.
Okay. We'll proceed with the second one, challenges and solutions of the EU energy security. And the paper will be presented by Yasin Tüzün.
Thank you, Professor. Hello everyone. I am Yasin. Let me present. I am economics master student at Kadir University, and I'm currently on thesis project. And today I am going to talk about the EU energy security. Before I start, I want to give you the outline of my presentation. First, the definitions of both energy security and EU energy security will be given. And then I want to visualize the energy market view through some graphs and tables. Then what are the challenges of EU energy security? As a response to this challenge, policies to handle with EU energy security will be detailed. The last part is my concluding sentences. So, what is an energy security? International Energy Agency explains energy security as the uninterrupted availability of energy sources at an affordable price while respecting environmental concerns. So the energy security is divided into two parts. First one is long-term energy security. Long-term energy security deals with timely investments to supply energy in line with economic developments and environmental needs. The second one is short-term energy security, focused on the ability of the energy system to react promptly to sudden change in the supply-demand balance. So the EU energy security is divided into 8 items. The first one is secure gas supplies. EU legislation has to prevent and respond to potential gas supply disruptions. The second one is diversification of gas supply sources and routes, increased security of energy. The third one is security of electricity supply. EU legislation to prepare for managed electricity crisis situations. The fourth item is EU oil stocks. EU countries are required to maintain emergency stocks of oil, which can be used in case of a disruption to supply. The fifth one is offshore oil and gas safety, EU rules to prevent and respond to accidents on offshore installations. The sixth one is oil and gas licensing. It's related to EU rules governing the granting of licenses for oil and gas exploration and production. The seventh one is energy security requires adequate protection of critical infrastructure, in particular against cyber attacks. When I prepared this presentation, first, there is no pandemic effect, but nowadays EU energy security includes energy supply and pandemics title. This title is related to the EU Commission collaborates with relevant energy expert groups to ensure access to energy, risk preparedness, and cross-border coordination. So we can move on to an energy market view. We learned the definition of energy security and EU energy security. Let's look at EU energy market view. These two figures, European oil production and consumption, European natural gas production and consumption, clearly indicates that EU own production of oil and natural gas is not enough to cover its consumption. The gap between oil, especially oil, is huge with compared to natural gas. Energy resources distribution is also important to understand EU energy security. According to this Eurostat graph, oil and petroleum products are most important energy resources. Thereafter, natural gas comes up. Total share of these two resources are more than 50%. On the other hand, renewable energy share increases year after year. So let's look at EU energy import dependency. What are the energy import dependency change historically? The total energy import dependency increased from 43% in 1995 to 54% in 2014. This graph clearly shows that all energy resources dependency increased in historically. As of 2014, the oil import dependency reached at 87% and natural gas was 67%. So the EU energy imports by country of origin. When we look at this graph, we can infer that EU has not diversified energy suppliers. Russia is the main suppliers of oil, natural gas, and coal. Russia and Norway's share of natural gas is more than 60% and share of oil is more than 40%. Russia and Colombia's hard coal imports share are more than 50% of total energy import. Lastly, I want to show you the indicators table. The table shows that some of the precautions has already taken, but it has to be developed. The share of fossil fuels year after year has decreased and the renewable energy share has increased, but the renewable share is not enough for EU since the overall import dependency reached at 55% in 2017. So what are the major challenges? The first one is the main problem of EU energy security stems from the wide gap between production and consumption, as I showed in the graphs. The only energy exporter country in EU region is Norway. So the second one is limited number of energy supplies. The natural gas has come from Russia, Norway, Bulgaria, and Qatar. The oil come from Russia, Norway, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia. EU imports energy from very few countries for both oil and natural gas. 5 countries composed of 8% of total oil and natural gas, approximately. So this situation may become threat for EU if there will be any disruptions come from these limited supplies. The third one is low contribution of European countries in proven reserves and global production. EU suffers from lack of hydrocarbon reserves. EU oil reserves constitute only 0.8% of total oil reserves. Natural gas reserves only 2% of total natural gas, and the hard coal reserves account maybe compared to oil and natural gas better, but not enough, 12% of total coal reserves at the end of 2018. So the fourth one is environmental concerns due to heavy use of polluting energy resources. Sustainability issue is an important aspect of EU energy security. For this reason, countries should abandon fossil fuels. The share of fossil fuels in 2017 is 74%. The next one is EU member states have divergent energy security paths. EU member states have not common goals due to their geographical historical differences. The western side of EU advocates renewable energy, seeking for energy diversification. However, the East in Europe heavily dependent on fossil fuels and do not make enough effort for energy transition. The sixth one is lack of infrastructure and urgent need for investment. EU is more vulnerable when EU faced with supply disruptions. TANAP and also other new partners such as Israel Mediterranean Hub will be a good solution in the next years. So the last one is insufficient development of competitiveness of European energy markets. The lack of energy market leads to more vulnerable to price fluctuations. After finishing the major challenge, we can look at policy recommendations. The first one is ensuring new energy suppliers. Ensuring new energy suppliers may include Southern Gas Corridor, Caspian Sea countries, and Eastern Mediterranean areas will be a good option to diversify their energy suppliers. So the second one is obviously increasing the share of renewable energy. EU has ranked second after China in terms of renewable energy investments, but renewable energy only accounts for 17% of total energy market, and it is not enough. The third one is efficient energy consumption. Efficient energy consumption can be a good solution to handle with import dependence. If they cannot increase their energy production, they have focused on decreasing their energy consumption by energy saving. And the previous one, stockpiling as a response to short-term supply disruptions, as already mentioned in the EU energy security part. The next one is an integrated approach to addressing climate change issues. Transition from fossil fuel to renewable energy is not an easy task. Therefore, international cooperation among suppliers and EU is needed. Also, renewable energy investment should continue at the expense of huge budget deficits. And the next one is common goal and harmony between member states. To deal with divergence between West and East, the solution is well-established internal market and common view about external relations with energy producers. The next one is partnership with producers, transit countries, and other international performance. EU can develop good relations with China, US, and also Turkey. EU will benefit from China and US experience about renewable energy technologies, and also the US from shale gas energy technologies, and also the increasing the competitiveness of European industry to overcome the price fluctuations. So before I conclude with, I want to give you some links about the coronavirus impacts of energy, but I will share on the chat when I finish my presentation. As a conclusion, it seems that there will be increasing importance of clean energy and domestic energy resources. the member states will give more incentives to renewable energy, such as R&D in renewable energy technologies. Despite of these factors, fossil fuels will maintain its role in the energy market in the short term. And also Russia's significant role of energy supply will not change immediately despite of declining share of total energy supply. Some critical projects such as East Med pipeline, Biscay Gulf, France, Spain interconnection, and Suez Link are still under construction, and the effects of these projects are not realized yet. And also there are some questionable points. How the member states go together, and what will be the new partners? And before I finish, the pandemics could be beneficial in terms of energy transition. During this year, despite of declining fossil fuel usage, renewable energy consumption has remained at pre-crisis level. And the future will be based on energy mix composed of fossil fuel and clean energy. Thank you for attention.
Thank you, Yasin. Thank you. John, any comments?
It's an important topic to understand the EU's outlook. I think the EU's kind of largest power is its kind of ability to shape the market. It's such a important market for obviously Russia, the United States. Really, everyone wants to be in the European market. It sets standards for all kinds of goods, but it's doing the same in energy. I'm sure your paper will get into, all its what I find quite aggressive strategies in terms of the energy transition to really push forward. Yes, a lot of them are unlikely to be met, and they have problems between different countries. The Western European countries want to be much more aggressive, whereas these aren't realistic strategies in, Poland or Eastern Europe in terms of getting rid of coal and these things. But, countries want to be in the European market. And I think that's, something to watch going forward. And also in terms of their domestic politics and EU-wide politics. We saw last year, the Green Party make significant inroads in terms of changing policy. Countries like the Netherlands are literally giving up their natural gas production. They're just kind of walking away from it due to environmental concerns, earthquakes, etc. And so I admire Europe in this regard, and it's important to kind of understand, though, as you're pointing out here, the energy security dimensions that drive change the energy system. So that's my comment I would add.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do you guys any questions in the audience? No? Okay, Yasin, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you, Professor.
Okay, we'll see you as soon as possible then. Okay, we will skip into another presentation by Berk Dede. He's a MS student in the Energy and Sustainable Development Program, and his topic will be Turkey's natural gas security. Okay.
As you say, Professor, my topic is Turkey's natural gas security. And I want to start with the definition of energy security. It usually means providing adequate and reliable energy at reasonable prices. This concept often repeats in national energy policies at the European and worldwide levels. Fossil fuels meeting to today's needs around 78%. Unfortunately, only a small number of countries have sufficient fossil fuel reserves. So countries should define energy security, and it was about mostly energy supply security. As you can see on the figure, Russia, Iran, and Qatar have more than the 50% natural gas reserves in the world. Therefore, some problems emerging, such as price fluctuations, market manipulations, and some supply cuts. For every country, uninterrupted energy consumption has importance for sustainable economic growth. Turkey's energy need is increasing day by day with economic growth and growing population. Oil and gas meet 60% of Turkey's primary energy supply, and 99% of natural gas and 95% of oil are importing. 30% of Turkey's natural gas using for electricity, rest of it using in building and industry at an equal rate. Natural gas consumption will increase more in the coming years, depend on increase in residential sector and developing natural gas infrastructure, and also increasing population. Final electricity consumption will rise to 424 terawatt hour in 2023, according to Turkey's future targets. It's possible that the consumption will more increase than the estimation. As you can see, before the 2019 and COVID, natural gas had a rising trend. This rising trend up to residential and industry sector mostly. Turkey has 6 import pipeline and 1 international export pipeline. Around 18%, 80% of the natural gas provided to from that pipelines, and more than the 60% of this imported gas belongs to Russia. Rest of it, Azerbaijan and Iran at an equal rate. These are the pipelines. As you can see, some pipelines are direct to, coming from the supplier country. It's very important for transit security and energy supply security. And we have 1 international export pipeline, as you can see, Turkey to Greece. LNG trade and investments are rising due to countries' alternative gas seeking, and LNG also used when natural gas delivered through pipelines technically or economically impossible, like Japan use mostly LNG. In this technology, natural gas is liquefied by cooling down to minus 160 centigrade degree, and its volumes reduced to 600 times. In the world share of LNG in natural gas trade was only 6% in 70s, but it's reached 32.5% in 2015. At the same year, Turkey's LNG import was 23.4%. 3 countries, Algeria, Qatar, and Nigeria, supply more than the 18% of Turkey's LNG. Turkey has 2 LNG terminals, which are Marmara Reydis Dörtyol and Eskiport Aliya LNG terminal. Storage capacity is very important. Storage capacity should equal to 10% of annual imports minimum. Storage capacity and LNG terminal capacity has significantly increased. Storage capacity of LNG terminals has reached almost 1 million meter cube. And Turkey has 2 storage facilities. First is Botaş Silivri, and the other one Tüzün underground natural gas storage facilities. Energy security is strategies which are developed to minimize the risk of energy use, production, and consumption. Energy security issues are generally concerned with availability and affordability of energy. Risk of energy availability can be classified as short-term or long-term. Short-term issues mostly unplanned outages, and long-term is insufficient supplies. For availability, sudden and unplanned interruptions that may occur in the short term. Middle East region, which has a large energy resource, is unstable because of wars and terrorism, as you know. In the past years, Turkey has come face to face with this threat. Result of the terrorist attack on the pipelines in 2015, energy supply has been cut. Iran-Turkey natural gas pipeline attacked and it couldn't supply energy for a week. At the same year, another terrorist attack targeted the Baku-Tbilisi-Erzurum natural gas pipeline. Also, unplanned outages can cause from infrastructure problems and extreme air conditions. The supply that can meet the increasing demand is another energy security problem. LNG trade agreement with Qatar and the construction of the Turkish Stream natural gas pipeline. These are some studies for against insufficient supply. Example of reliability of supplier. In 2006, Russia had a political crisis with Ukraine. And Russia cut the gas which is going to Ukraine because of it blames to Ukraine stealing the gas from Russia, and it caused serious supply problem for Europe. But Turkey didn't affect because we have direct pipelines. As I mentioned, it's very important. For possible solutions, energy source and supply types diversity is necessary, definitely necessary. Increasing the variety of energy source, especially in electricity production, is significant. As I mentioned, 30% of natural gas using electricity production. Investments in renewable energy is one of the solutions. Renewable power plants are local and sustainable, and the most important, their energy source is free. Natural gas storage capacity and LNG terminals are very important when facing of such short-term interruptions. We have to increase our energy efficiency, although energy efficiency is not a direct solution, but it's extremely important for achieving the set goals for energy security. International Energy Agency Director Fatih Birol said that in recent years, energy efficiency has to be at the center of energy policies. Although Turkey didn't make an intensive study of energy efficiency in natural level, it's considered to have the potential to increase at least 25%. This potential shows that Turkey has great opportunity. Thanks for listening and your time. That's all.
Okay, thank you. John, let's start with you again.
Well, sure. I mean, there are, it's quite an exciting topic these days, and I guess, instead of kind of going to one specific topic, if you were energy minister, what would be your number one priority for Turkey's gas strategy today?
In natural gas, you mean?
In natural gas,
them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Given his.
First of all, I can increase the LNG terminals in Turkey because we have two, and we have opportunity for importing LNG from the seas, and also new pipelines infrastructures also good. But energy efficiency may be my first topic. Will be first topic because we don't use energy at efficient. Doing job in with 1 unit is better than 10 units because it's the my center. It will be my center probably.
Okay, yeah, I think that's maybe it's Fatih Birol who calls it the energy efficiency is the low-hanging fruit of the energy transition. So
yes. And Berk, the last two topics were on the energy security, and we now divide energy security into three. One was energy supply security and demand security. And we, together with John and Mustafa Aydin, wrote a chapter, and we proposed the third one, that is the energy transit security. I'll send that chapter to you, so you'll have a complete idea of energy security, including all of them. Okay, thank you for this presentation. Corona days, changed many things in Okay, guys, so we are at the closing session, and me and Professor Meltem Ucal are going to make some closing remarks, and then we will close the conference. Okay, Meltem, maybe we can start with you. What are your...
Thank you for all your excellent work. It is fair to conclude that the conference was a great success. So many graduate students have contributed in so many ways to turn this event into a smoothly running meeting with many very interesting presentations and a very good atmosphere for discussion and networking. I would like to mention a few points to subject of the conference. The production and use of the energy are responsible for more than half of the world's total greenhouse gas emissions. That means energy is also more than half of the solution. We need sustainable energy to reduce global greenhouse emissions and avert the risk of runaway climate change. Access to modern, reliable, affordable, clean energy is equally important for ending extreme poverty and reducing inequality. More than 1 billion people worldwide live without electricity. Nearly 3 billion people depend on the smoky, dangerous traditional fuels for cooking and heating. Energy poverty can take different forms in different situations, but it always has major consequences for the people's life. The COVID-19 pandemic has been dismantling steady progress made in recent years to increase access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy. We need sustainable energy for better education, better health, and stronger, more resilient economies. Energy efficiency is one of our best tools for reducing energy-related emissions. Saving energy is a triple win solution. It can save money, reduce the emissions, and provide additional energy capacity. There are also other groundbreaking initiatives for solution of energy that have been presented in the conference today. On behalf of the Center for Energy and Sustainable Development, it gives me much pleasure to bring to close this third meeting of the Graduate Student Conference on Energy and Sustainable Development. I have much confidence in the future of the energy-related analysis and look forward to working on the programs, initiatives, and plans of the action that we will develop together in support of the energy and sustainable development. As we close this meeting, many thanks go to our chairs, vice chairs, and delegates, colleagues from across the university, civil society, and other stakeholder organizations, as well as to our excellent moderators, speakers, discussants. I would also like to thank our organizing and scientific committees for giving structure to program and supporting the conference in many direct and indirect ways. Thank you again and see you in the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Meltem, for these nice words about the conference. You know, I've attended almost all of them, you know, except one or two, half of the two, I needed to go to the bathroom. So the rest of them, I had a chance to listen them. And my comments will be on three parts, as a matter of fact. The first part is the presentation. You know, I'm highly impressed about the English and the presentation presentation quality of the presenters. I didn't know that, you know, the Turks can speak such a good English, and the youngsters, you know, learn this English is very well, much better than we do, definitely. And they also, their slides were very good, very informative, very colorful, and, you know, full of information. And their also English were very good. So they were really, especially the quality was very good too. You know, in the beginning, you know, they just put some table of contents and they explained this step by step and concluded the papers in a very good way. To me, you know, I'm 67 years old, 60 plus 7. And I've attended so many conferences in the world. Most of them were presented by the professionals. I can honestly say that this was not worse than that, those. I think it was one of the best conferences I've attended. So I really would like to thank all the presenters for attending the conference, for giving such good presentations. And I want to see them all into the 4th conference. We haven't decided when we're going to organize it. You know, we used to organize these into May, but because of coronavirus pandemic, we have postponed it to the December this time. But we will announce the date and the place of them. I hope we will meet, you know, face to face and see you and talk to you and have good contacts with you. But if we can't, we will continue again and online. I again want to thank all the presenters and would like them good success in their further studies, for their graduate studies. They were really very professional. And the second one is about the organization. You know, it was very good organized, very well organized. Everything was perfect. You know, the timing, program, and abstract book, and the visual things, you know, the posters and everything. And also the communication with the scientific communities were also great. So I want to thank all the organizers, starting with Vildan. But there is one person who's very special to us. She is the assistant of our center, Hazal Mengidincher. Without her, this would never been realized, you know, for sure. So she did a great job as ever. So we're very happy to have her together with us. And the third one are the moderators and discussants. You know, they spent their time, they shared their valuable time with us. They listened to all the presentations, and they made a lot of very good comments. And I'm sure that their comments will definitely improve the graduate projects of the presenters. So as a whole, this was definitely a teamwork, and a lot of people made contributions to this. So my last words is, would like to thank all of the people who contributed this conference. And I wish you all good and healthy days, Corona days, and also a Merry Christmas and a very happy New Year with you and your families, together with your families. Hope to see you in our next event. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.